How's everyone doing today? Cool. My microphone seems to be getting auto-adjusted by Zoom in a bad way, so if you stop being able to hear me, please let me know. Or if you can't hear me now. But
It might be a Zoom thing because I'm having issues with mine too. It keeps kicking me off.
okay.
Just, just on my headphones, and then it's kind of weird.
All right. Yeah, there was an upgrade recently, so I went ahead and did that, and that might have changed things. But anyway, so we are here. So welcome to CSE224. This is what I call Section B, even though that's not listed. It's like Section 2 or something. But if you hear me talk about Section B, that's this one. It's the second one. All right, so number of things that I want to do this morning. So some of them are administrative in nature. Some of them are actually getting into some of the guts of the course. Let me start with the administrative stuff. Let me talk about the goals for the course, some aspects of Zoom, attendance, and then we'll go through Canvas and the syllabus. So let's start by talking about CSE 224. Why are we here? What are we hoping to do? Presumably, most of the people here are computer science focused and are looking to transfer to university to continue computer science education, leading usually towards a bachelor's degree. And so this is the second year sequence, or the final year sequence of computer science classes at Clark, and there's 4 courses in this sequence. CSE 224 is what we're taking right now. This is followed by 222 in winter, 223 in spring, and then CSE 215, which you'll take either this quarter or in winter. So what is 224? It's basically tool using. It's looking at working in a Linux environment and developing a tool set for doing things like editing, compiling, moving around the file system, manipulating files, debugging code, working with source code control systems, Git in particular. The kinds of things that you use when you live and work in a Unix environment. And these are things that will help you for, all the way through spring in this course sequence, and will also help you in courses as you move on to university and take more advanced programming courses and such. Tool using and tool building is one part of the course. The second part is shell scripting. So we use Bash in this course, and getting good at writing short programs in Bash, or maybe long programs in Bash, to do different things. And this is good for 2 reasons. One, because it will help you build up your toolkit, but 2, it's also a good way to brush up on your programming. And this is the third aspect of the course, is really getting very, very comfortable with programming in general. Meaning taking a problem, visualizing how to break it down into pieces that you can describe algorithmically, coming up with that algorithm, implementing it in either C or Bash in this course, testing it, debugging it, right, and moving towards, a complete working solution to whatever your original problem was. And so we do that in Bash, but we also do it in C. And you've presumably had CSE121, an intro to C, before this course. This is really sort of the advanced version of that. This gets into a lot more detail on C programming. We want to get very comfortable with doing a lot of input-output in very controlled ways, working with functions, flow control, conditionals, all that kind of stuff. We don't get into pointers. Okay, we'll leave that for 222. That's the data structures course in C. That's where we really dig down deep and we start manipulating memory with our C code. So that's a data structures course in winter. And then in spring, CSE 223 is advanced data structures, but we switch to Java. And Java is object-oriented, so we're looking at an object-oriented programming language there. And then CSE 215, which you take either this quarter or in winter, this is some of the math and theory and logic that underpins computer science. So propositional calculus, Boolean logic, permutations, combinations, mathematical inductions, correctness of proofs, all these kinds of things. If you did not get into 215 in fall, sign up for it in winter, and I'll overload winter however far I need to make sure everybody takes it. But you've got to take that course either now or in winter if you're planning to transfer next year, and if you want to take 223 in spring. So those are the 4 courses. This is 224. This is Unix tools and shell programming and such. All right.
You said 215 was the one to take now, right? If you can.
215 is the one to take now or in winter. It's filled up as far as I know. There were about 14 people on the waiting list. But if someone drops and you happen to sneak in right now, that's fine. But most people who aren't in there just take it in winter. All right. Let me talk about Zoom. So obviously we're meeting through Zoom. This is a it's a Zoom-based class. It's listed as remote. It's not an actual online class. Okay. It's remote in the sense that we meet every day at 11 o'clock till 11:50, and you're expected to be here on Zoom so that you can participate. So it's like a regular in-person class, except we got Zoom in between us. But it's not an online class where you just kind of like, take it at your own pace and so on. Not a whole lot of rules around Zoom. So basically, you know how to connect because you're here already. Keep your microphone muted, but if you have a question, if you want to say something, if you don't understand something, feel free to unmute your microphone and just ask, right? You can also use the chat window. You can chat to each other. You can chat to me. You can send direct messages to me if you don't want other people to see them. So if you have a question about something, you can send me a chat message. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat window. But if I haven't gotten to your question, just open your mic and say, hey, can I ask you a question? And we'll keep it pretty informal, pretty free flow. I don't require cameras, but I encourage people to use their cameras, right? It's more collaborative if you can see other people and they can see you, and you feel like you're in a class instead of just sitting, in front of your laptop or desktop, listening to me talk and trying to stay awake. So the more you can be engaged during the lecture, the more you'll get out of it, and the more enjoyable it'll be. So if having the camera on helps with that, definitely go for that. I am recording my lectures. If this bar goes away, I'm still recording my lectures, right? So I record basically what you're seeing here. So if I'm writing something on here, that'll be recorded. If we're doing something in a terminal window, that's what you'll see in the recording. If we're doing something in a web browser, that's what you'll see. And whatever you hear right now, that's what gets recorded in the audio. So I generally won't put the list of attendees out here or the chat session or things like that. So privacy wise, these videos are available. If you don't want something you're saying to be heard, send me a message and say, hey, can you turn off recording or something, and I can do that, or just send me chat messages. All right, attendance. So I will be taking attendance, and I'll be counting attendance this quarter. It's 10% of your grade. And the way we do attendance through Zoom is periodically I will say, hey, send me an attendance ping. I'm taking attendance right now. And what you want to do is send me a message. And I suggest sending this as a direct message to me instead of just the general chat. But send a chat message to me with your name as it appears in Canvas, a dash, and then the uppercase word here. All right, so let's go ahead and do that right now. I'll do an attendance ping. Just send me your name, a dash, and the uppercase word here. And make sure your name is in the beginning of it. Cool. And so this will get processed later on by some automated tools to record, who responded to the attendance pings. And I'll try to do this a few times during class. Make sure you do your full name as it appears in Canvas, first name and last name. Dash here. Okay, so if you happen to go away from your keyboard for a minute and I do attendance while you're gone, right, you would lose credit for that. So to avoid losing credit, if you're going away from your keyboard, just send me your name, dash, and AFK for away from keyboard. And then when you come back, just send me your name, dash, and the word back. And then if I happen to take attendance while you're away from keyboard, you'll still get credit for it. How do I do this? Just in the chat window, so where you typed, how do I do this? There should be something that says to : and you can say to everybody, or you can say to me. And just type in your name, dash, and the word here. There you go. So someone posted that in. There you go. Cool. Awesome. Perfect. All right. And you don't have to tell me why you're going away from keyboard if you don't want. Just let me know you're away from keyboard and you're back. But if you go away from keyboard in the beginning of class and you don't come back till the last minute of class, right? I'm not going to give you credit for it. So you can't just skip the attendance pings like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question about the attendance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm working at a semiconductor engineering company right now.
Yeah.
So I don't think I could be here on Wednesday and the Thursday, Friday.
All right. So go ahead and send me an email, and we'll work out the details of that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Welcome. All right, cool. So I'll try to remember to do attendance pings a few times during class. All right, let's take a look at Canvas. There's a lot in here, and I'm not going to go through most of this in gory detail. I encourage you to review all of this material on your own, but we'll take a quick run through Canvas, and then I'll dig a little more into the syllabus and additional course policies. So we'll come back to those. So we meet daily. I may as well switch to the correct section because we meet at 11. All right, so we meet at 11 to 11:50 every day. So we'll come back to the syllabus and course policies. Zoom remote meeting info, you've already got the info because you're here. If that changes, I'll note that in Canvas. Office hours, so engrcs.com/schedule is listed in the syllabus. And that'll basically tell you where and when my office hours are. Right now, my office hours are every morning, 8:30 to 9:30. There's the Zoom info. That's the best way to talk about questions where we need to go back and forth, right? If you have a really, really quick question, you can try catch me an email. But if it's going to be a back and forth, come by office hours. And engrcs.com will always show you my current office hours. So if something happens and I can't do hours, say on Wednesday morning, I would note that in here. What desktop environment do you use? Yeah, it's basically KDE, I think. It's some weird hybrid of KDE and a bit of GNOME and maybe some XFCE. Mostly I live on the command line in Linux. The most windowy stuff I do is actually when I'm teaching because I'm moving stuff around. But it's a pretty bare bones, and it's Ubuntu 18 right now. How to quick start guide. We'll dig through that in a little bit also when we start talking about the assignments that are due on Wednesday. And there's 2 assignments due Wednesday. All right, there's a textbook for the course. It's an open source free PDF download. You don't need to read it cover to cover. You don't want to print it out. But it's a handy Linux text. But it's just a Linux text. I'm not going to give you problems from this text, so it's not critical in that sense. But if you want, a resource available as a PDF file, This seems like a pretty good one, and it's open access. But you know, Linux has been around for half a century. There's tons of information about it available. Whatever works for you is going to be good. When we start talking about programming in Bash, we'll come back to this. This is a how-to, and I'm going to be very specific about how I want you to do certain things in Bash scripts, how I want you to do conditionals and arithmetic and so on. So we'll dig into those. As I mentioned, my videos are all recorded and they're posted on YouTube. I don't monetize my videos, Google does. So as of November, they started putting commercials into videos for their own profit. So commercials show up on my videos. I'm sorry. It's not something I did. It's not something I'm profiting from. But that's Google. I may switch to Vimeo at some point if it gets much worse. But this will get you a link to the lecture videos. And if we open this up, right now there's a few boilerplate videos to begin with, some things that will be useful, and we'll talk about these as we go through these topics. And look, here's the video from this morning's class, right? So that's 224 section A. So this will grow over time, right? And this is just a playlist dedicated to this year's videos. And there's also a timestamp index. So the timestamp index will basically list topics that were covered in the course, and it's searchable. And so if you want to go back and say, hey, when did we go over, you know, how to customize PuTTY, or how to use makefiles, or how to you know, use the tar command or something like that, you can search this archive. Now there's nothing in here right now because the class just started. The year just started an hour ago. But to give you an idea, for last year, right, this is what the timestamp log looks like. So it's just you know, class numbers, dates, times, and timestamps and subjects. And so
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, go for it.
What we're going to use. So in my 121 class, they wanted us to use PuTTY, but I could never get it to actually work.
Okay.
So I used the PowerShell, and PowerShell connected to the server every time. Is there a preference that you have, or do we have to use PuTTY?
Nope, you can use PuTTY, you can use SSH, you can use any program that you like that will make an SSH connection to a remote machine. I'm just going to work from the command line, so I'll usually use SSH. Most people will use PuTTY, but yeah, whatever works for you is going to be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. As we develop code in the course, if we write some code in class and it seems useful, I'll go ahead and I'll post that on the server, and this will get you to an area where you can look at that code and review it and download it if you like. There's a Discord server for my classes. It is not required. If I post something critical in there, I will be sure to also post it in Canvas or mention it in class. But some people have found this to be useful as a way to, one, just kind of like touch base and collaborate with other students, socialize, bounce questions around, whatever. It's not mandatory, and it's also not moderated. Okay, I'll pop in there once in a while if someone asks a question. Usually other students will answer it. If not, or if I want to expand on an answer, I might, chime in there. But it's there for whatever degree it works for you. If we run into any problems, if it starts being abused, if people are being nasty or something like that, I'll just go ahead and shut it down. So play nicely, right? It's not moderated by me or anybody else, but it's there as a resource. There's an optional C textbook that you can also download. This is a book that I wrote a few years ago as basically a bridge between 121 and 224. So CSE121, you learn C programming, but the degree to which people come out knowing C can vary. Some people come out really, really solid in C. Some people come out kind of got an idea what this argc argv stuff is about, but I didn't really make much sense out of that, right? So this is meant to be kind of a bridge between that course and this course. It's a quick read. Most of the chapters are 10 pages or less, right? So So, you know, argc, argv, there's 3 pages that talk about that. But it can be useful as we go through some of this material and as we go into 222. It's a free PDF download, so if you want to pull down a copy of that, you're welcome to it. To whatever degree it's helpful for you. Some direct links to some videos that may be useful, which we'll talk about in a few more days. We'll talk about regular expressions later in this course, and there's some links there. One-day programs. So this is a big part of this course. So you want to be doing a lot of programming when you're trying to learn computer science. Most important thing you can be doing is writing programs. And for years, you know, I told my students, you know, how can I get better at the stuff? Write code, okay? I don't understand this stuff. How can I understand it better? Write code. How can I do better on tests? Write code. How can I learn to program quicker? Write code. But just saying write code doesn't really tell you what code to write, right? So so we have in this course a series of these so-called one-day programs. These are short programming assignments that will test your understanding up to this point in the course. And the way these are set up is if you really understand the material up to this point, these may take you 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to write. But if you don't really understand everything that you're supposed to up to this point, these may take longer. They may take a lot longer. You could spend 4 hours on one of these assignments, right? But that's time that you really want to spend right then. Because if you don't understand something that we went through in class on Wednesday, and you don't understand it enough that it's going to take you 4 hours to figure it out, right? You really want to spend that time on Wednesday so that by Thursday, when we start building on that, you've got a good foundation. Or if you're not able to figure it out, you can come to office hours Thursday morning and say, hey, I don't understand such and such, and we can talk about it and get you back up to speed. And so these will help keep you on track throughout the course. They will give you an opportunity to self-assess your own understanding of these different subjects. And they're graded automatically. So there's an assess command, which we'll go through today, that will let you, write your program, assess it, see if you got it correct. And if you don't, you can change the program, reassess it. You can assess it as many times as you like until you get 100% on it. All right, so these are sort of like, touchstones or checkpoints along the way to keep track of your progress. Attendance we talked about already. Homework, there'll be a few short homework assignments, but mostly there's going to be 5 long programming assignments. And the first one is posted. That'll be due October 1st, but we're not ready to start talking about that. That's going to be a bash programming assignment. But homework 1 is due Wednesday. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then homework 2 will be due Friday. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow. Service Learning Project is a year-long project you'll work on starting in this course. We'll talk about that later in the week. There's a midterm exam, which will be on Friday the 22nd of October, and then a final exam. Clark didn't have their schedule posted yet, so see the final exam schedule, and we'll have our final whatever date Clark lists for this time slot. All right, so let me talk about the syllabus a little bit. So a lot of this we've already gone through: course description, prerequisites, teacher information. My name's Nick. I always forget to say that. My name's Nick. My email, nmacias@clark.edu, is the only way to reach me through email. Don't use Canvas email. It doesn't always work for me. But if you want to talk to me about something, your best bet is 1, ask during class. If you can't ask during class, come by office hours. If you can't come by during office hours, you can try sending me an email, but try to make your email as complete as possible so that I can understand what you're asking and I can try to give you an answer. And there's a link to the general schedule for office hours and for Zoom info. Thank you. All right, tentative schedule. You can look at this, but we'll probably fall off this in a few days. But this is the stuff that we want to get through. We may not get through it in this order or with this timing, but those are the subjects we're going to try to go over. Course outcomes. These are the things that we expect you to have learned if you complete the course with a C or better, which means when you transfer to a school, having done 224 with a C or better, they're going to expect you to have achieved these course outcomes. So these are sort of the real, in some sense, goals of the course. All right, grading, straightforward numeric calculation. Homeworks and programming assignments, 30%. That's the bulk of your grade. One-day programs, 10% total. Attendance, 10%. Midterm and final, 25%. Service learning project, 5%. So that should add up to 100. Course policies. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about academic honesty and plagiarism. So let me give you a boiled down version of this, okay? The key to learning how to program is to write programs, right? To write programs and debug programs and test programs and so on. To learn this material, you've got to be doing your own work. If you're trying to figure out how to do an assignment and you look online and you see something on Stack Overflow or Chegg or something and you say, oh, now I know how to do it, right? Good chance you've short-circuited your learning. You may think that now you understand that concept, but really what you've done is you've seen a solution, and even if you sit down and you write your own code from your head, you're writing a derivation of that solution that you already saw. And that circumvents your understanding and your learning. And when you get to a test and you try to do a similar kind of problem, guess what? You're going to realize, I don't actually know how to do that. Because that code I saw that gave me the missing piece, I didn't understand it. Okay, so that's the first thing. You really don't want to look at other code. Okay, now you may find code in the textbook, and we'll go through code in class and so on and so forth. But when you're writing your programming assignments, don't go to online sources. Don't go to Stack Overflow. Definitely don't go to Chegg, right? Don't look at anybody else's code. Now, you can talk to other students and you can say, hey, I don't understand makefiles. What are makefiles for? That's a fantastic conversation to have, okay? What's not a fantastic conversation to have? Can I see what your makefile looks like? Take a look at it, take a screenshot, now you type it in as your makefile. You're not going to understand makefiles. And when the exam comes and I give you a makefile and say, make changes to this to do such and such, or tell me what this does, or add a section to do this other thing, right? You're not going to know how to do it. So stay away from online sources of code. Stay away from other students' code. Don't share your code with anybody. Okay? The biggest problem with all that is it will interfere with your learning. The other problem is it's dishonest, okay, and it will cost you. So my policy is really straightforward. If you turn in code as your own, and it's the same as code that's available online or code that somebody else turned in, it's a 0. Okay, if it happens again, it's an F in the course, and that's it. No wiggle room on this. Now, the one exception is, like homework 1 is a hello world. It's a one-line C program. Your code's probably going to look like everybody else's code. That's okay. I'm talking about the programs where they're, 50 or 100 lines long, or a few thousand lines long later in the year. And it's pretty clear if this was code that is the same as somebody else's. So yeah, it is possible to accidentally create the same program, and in that case, like I say, if it's a 3-line program, I'm not going to call you out on it because there's only so many ways you can do some things. But if it's 50 lines of code and it looks more or less exactly like somebody else's code, or it's the same but the variables have changed or the spacing has changed or something, but it's basically the same code, if I call you out on it and you really did write this yourself, right? We'll have a conversation about it. I'll ask you some questions. You can explain some things to me about the code, and we can take that as good. So just be aware of it. And I've never had a situation where it appeared that something inappropriate was going on where it turned out to be innocent, right? It's usually, it's not a gray area, but it can feel like it sometimes. All right, and the other comment on this is if you have any questions, come and talk to me, right? If you looked at some code online and now you think that your code looks too much like what you saw, right? Come and talk to me before you turn in the assignment. Come to office hours and say, hey, you know, I looked at such and such and I saw this. I tried to write my code. I don't know if this is going to be considered cheating or not. We'll look at it and we'll go from there, right? And that's a much easier conversation to have than, you know, after you turn it in and I say, hey, this looks like, you know, something from Chegg or whatever. All right, so late papers. Everything has to be turned on time except for homework. Okay, so particularly the long programming assignments, I will let you have up to 3 slip days. So if an assignment is due Friday morning at 8 and you cannot get it in until noon, right? Send me a note and say, hey, I want to use a slip day on programming assignment 2. And as long as it's turned in by, in that case, 8 o'clock Saturday morning, I would dock you 1 slip day and I would take the assignment as being on time. All right, so you have 3 opportunities to miss deadlines for 1 day each. Or, you know, if you want to turn an assignment in 2 days late, you can take 2 slip days and so on. But save these things, okay? Don't just use them week 1 because, you know, you forgot that you had an assignment due or something like that. Save these for there was a bad storm and the power went out and I didn't have internet access and I couldn't get to the library to use their internet connection, you know, or I got sick and I was in the emergency room all night and I was planning to finish my code tonight, so I need another day, right? So save these for emergencies, for unexpected things. Does not work for 1-day programs. Those are automatically graded, so they have to be turned in at the regular time. And slip days don't work for midterms or the final. So tests and quizzes, turn them in on the due date. I'll let you read the keys to success, and I've got some of these in the additional course notes. They're things that I've found useful just based on student experience in the past, but take a look at those for what they're worth. Class cancellation, probably not an issue since we're remote anyway. The rest of the syllabus has a lot of really good, really important information in it, but I don't think we have enough time to go through this in detail. But I want you to read through this, and this should be boilerplate across all courses. So if you've read this once for one class, you should be good. But the rest of the syllabus talks about things like accommodations if you feel like you would benefit from something like extended testing time, or if you're in person, a low distraction testing environment, or being able to sit in the front of the room with a reserved seat or something like that. Talk to me or talk to the Disability Support Services office, and we can help with accommodations. Non-discrimination policy, this we take really seriously. Make sure you read this and you understand it. If you have any questions, ask me or ask someone about it. Title IX, sexual misconduct, same thing. Make sure you've read through this at least once. Counseling and Health Center, lots of resources available. You can find general information here, but for example, financial help, food, emergency housing, right? There's resources available at the school. Read through this, click through here, or, you know, if you've got any doubts or questions about any of this, just come by office hours or send me an email, and I can help direct you. Accommodations for reasons of religion or conscience. You want to miss a day of school because of some day you want to observe, or so on and so forth, right? There's ways to make accommodations for this as well. If we were in person, we'd be wearing masks in the classroom at all times. We would be social distancing. You would be cleaning the area that you're sitting at before and after class begins and ends. We would not be eating or drinking in class, and so on and so forth. So we don't have to deal with these this quarter. If we move back to in-person in winter, then we'll get to do those things. And some more links to Code of Student Conduct and so on. So take a look at the rest of the syllabus. when you have a chance, and ask me if you have any questions about it. Addition. Go ahead.
I just had a question about the grading on like the one-day projects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Are you basically just grading it to like make sure final outcome is what we wanted, or do you have a specific set of like how you want us to write the code?
So for one-day programs, it's very specific, and the assessment tool will tell you if you got credit or not, or partial credit. And I'll usually go through the ODPs, and I'll go through ODP 401 today, and talk about what the expectations are. For the longer programming assignments, there's usually a very detailed assignment and sometimes a grading rubric that'll tell you exactly how your assignment will be graded. But again, if not, or if there's any questions, just let me know.
Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary to follow the instructions directly and very precisely? Like if I were to say have hello, comma, world, exclamation point, would
Yeah.
that be okay?
Nope. If you do that, it'll probably give you a 0. So we'll go through 401 in a few minutes and see that. But the ODPs in particular, since they're graded by an automated system, you really got to follow it very closely. And this is really great practice for the longer assignments. So like, programming assignment 1 will tell you, what you should call the file, what it should use to prompt the user, how it should respond to user actions, and so on. You want to follow those as directly as possible also. Now, I grade those, right? So if you call your program, something different from what I said, I may take off a few points for that, but I'll be able to figure out, oh, your program is called this instead of that, and I can still run it and grade the rest of it, right? But, as you move on to, say, a university, a lot of larger programs are also graded automatically. And it may be you spent, 60 hours writing a program, and it works perfectly, but you called it stick with an uppercase S instead of a lower, and you get a 0 on it. And if you try to argue those points, that's going to be a fairly painful process in some cases. So this is good practice, right, in being able to follow a prompt and ask questions and know where you can wiggle and where you can't. But other than the ODPs, right, I'm grading all of your stuff manually, and so I'll usually work with what you have and try to get you as many points as possible. All right, so yeah, come to every class, look at the videos, etc., etc. There's a link to information on the ODPs. We're going to go through that in detail. So read through those questions. Getting help, again, best way to ask for help is during class when it comes up. If I'm talking about something that's not making any sense, pretty guaranteed it's not making sense to a lot of people. So go ahead and ask a question, be a hero for everybody else in the class, and it will, keep you from tuning out because, well, I have no idea what he's talking about. I'll go back and watch the video later, right? Don't do that. So ask questions when they come up. If not, come by office hours and ask then. Discord server we talked about. Linux server we're about to log into, so you will see that. And we'll talk more about alternatives to the Linux server tomorrow. We'll talk about Git tomorrow. We already talked about attendance, academic honesty, late work. We're all set on that. All right, let's talk about the Linux server. So most people here have done CSE224B. You used a server called CTech in there. We use a different server in this course. So it's linux.engrcs.com. And I wrote it down just because I haven't written anything for a few minutes. But you don't need to write it down because there's an item on Canvas called the Quick Start Guide, or the How-To. And this will tell you, among other things, how to log into the Linux server. So, big red letters. This is different from your CTech login. Okay, pay attention to that. So the server name is linux.engrcs.com. And your username is whatever your name is in Canvas, your first initial, followed immediately by your last name. So if your name is Tom Smith, your username would be T Smith. It's not T period Smith, it's not T Smith with a number after it or anything like that. It's just first initial, last name. And your default password is your user ID from CTC link followed by an underscore. So 10 characters, 9 digits and an underscore, no spaces. And the first time you log in, it will tell you have to change your password. And you got to read the instructions really carefully, because usually to change your password, what you have to do is type in your old password. That's this thing. And then type in your new password, and then type in your new password again, and then it logs you out. So what do? Try logging in again using your new password. If it doesn't work, go back and read that dialogue, and maybe it said, passwords don't match or something like that. So log back in with your old password, type it in again when it asks you, and then type in your new password twice. All right. And homework 1 is really just to make sure that you're using, that you know how to get into the Linux server. So is it okay to use PowerShell for Windows instead of PuTTY? So if you use PowerShell to connect to the Linux server, that's fine. But you want to do most of your work on linux.engrcs.com. And there are a variety of ways to connect to that server. So a lot of people will use PuTTY. And so if you run PuTTY, it gives you a window like this. And so you would type in your username, so tsmith or nmacias, but I'm just going to use a test account here. So just test at linux.engrcs.com and go ahead and open that. And it will ask you for a password. And there you go, you're logged in. And you can also see the answer to homework 1 here. And when you want to log out, you can say exit, or you can hold Control and press D as in dog to close the connection. All right. If you're running from a Linux machine, and I strongly recommend that everybody in this course have a Linux machine at home, and you can either have a laptop that runs Linux, or you can run something called VirtualBox on top of Windows, or if you're running OS X, you're already running Linux basically. So we'll talk about these tomorrow. But once you're working from a Linux environment, if you're at a command shell, you can do SSH username at linux.engrcs.com. And normally it'll ask you for a password. You can set it up so it automatically logs you in using a secure key. But that's the other option, and this is the way I'll connect to the server for this class. And it lets you set up all kinds of nice shortcuts and such. WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, is also an option. In my experience, it is not the same as having a Linux environment, though. They're starting to have X support to some degree. But if you just want to connect to a server using SSH, WSL will work fine. But also, if you run WSL, that will disable some of the things you need to run a VirtualBox and boot up a virtual machine under Linux, which does give you X Windows and support for peripherals and all that sort of stuff. So multiple options. We'll talk about those tomorrow or Wednesday. But this gets us into the Linux server. And so this lets you do 2 things. It lets you do your first homework assignment, and it lets you do your first one-day program. So let's go back to the homework section. And there's a homework 001. This is due on Wednesday. And very, very straightforward assignment. Really, this is a quiz, right? So you can take this quiz. It's a single question. So log into the server, do your password change that you're required to do, and so on. Once you log in, you'll get that welcome message at the top, and at the bottom it will tell you what the answer to this quiz is. It's a one-word answer. Okay, log out and then take this quiz and enter that answer. Do that by Wednesday morning at 8, and you get 10 points, I think. And the goal of this is to make sure that you can log in and that you've changed your password correctly and you logged out and you can log in with your new password, right? So yeah, I already logged in. You already saw the answer. Technically, you could just take the quiz in Canvas and get credit for it, but you want to make sure you can log in, right? Because we're going to have assignments that are due on Wednesday, another assignment due on Friday, and you don't want to, Thursday night at midnight be trying to figure out how to log into the server. Figure that out right now or today. And if you're having troubles, come by office hours tomorrow morning. We can screen share. I can see what you're doing and so on. If you want help through email, right, I can try to help you through email. Now, I've got about 100 students this quarter, so limited, some limited options there. But, if you want help in email, try to send me a message that's as complete as possible. Don't just send me a message in email saying, I can't log in, right? I mean, I may not even know who you are. I may not know what you're trying to log into. And even if I know who you are, right, well, what happens when you try to log in? So I can send you back a message and you can say, it says I'm not logged in, right? So send me one email as complete as possible. Hey, this is so-and-so from CSE224 section B, or, R02D. I'm trying to log in. Here's the command I'm typing. Here's the username I'm typing. Here's the password I'm typing. Here's what it's telling me, right? That gives me enough information to hop onto the system, see what's going on, and say, oh, your username is such and such. Or, I didn't set up an account for you, try it again now. So try to be as complete as possible, right? If you have something where we need to have a back and forth conversation, let's do that in office hours. All right, so that's homework 001. Let's talk about the one-day program. So the first one-day program is actually 2 days. You don't have to turn it in until Wednesday morning. And it's basically a hello world. And so this is one where your code's going to look, like everybody else's code. Basically, write a program that prints out hello world followed by a new line. And then compile it and assess it. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. So I'm gonna make an array. So I'm on my laptop right now, right? And I'm going to write my program for ODP 401. What should I call it? I'm going to call it ODP 401.c. Because I want to keep these programs so I can refer back to them. I don't want to call it something like test or stupid program or something like that. Give it a meaningful name so that you can keep track of it. Let's go ahead and write our program. And if you want to take the code verbatim from what I'm typing here, that's totally fine with me. This is not a C programming exercise. It's a can you use the assess system exercise. Alright, so I've written my program. I'm going to compile it. There's instructions on how to compile it in here, but I'm just going to do GCC ODP 401.c. If I just do GCC ODP 401.c, what's the output called? A.out. So I want the output to be called ODP 401, so I don't have everything called A.out. So this compiles this, makes the output 401. Yeah? Question, comment?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
Okay, no problem. All right, I've got my ODP 401, right? This is the source program, the thing that I put my code in. This is what we call the executable program, the program that can be run. So let's assess that. And you need to assess the name of the executable program followed by the name of the source file. So you got to put both of those in here. So ODP 401 is the executable, the compiled program. This is the source program. Oh, but you got to do this on the server. My bad. All right, hop onto the server. So we're fast forwarding, doing everything that we just did. All right. So everything we just did, but doing it on the Linux machine instead. So assess ODP 401, ODP 401.c. And there's really one command in here, which is G for grade. So go ahead and grade that 0 out of 10. Why? Because I did something wrong. So go back and read the assignment.
The W.
Say again?
I think you missed the capital on the W.
Yep, so it's got to be uppercase H, uppercase W. Make that change, recompile, reassess, do the grade command, 10 out of 10, you're done. You can assess as many times as you like. When you're done, whatever the final grade was, that's what you're going to get recorded in Canvas.
So you can do it as many times as you want.
You do it as many times as you want, yeah. Just keep going until you get 100%. All right, send me one final attendance ping, and then you're good to go. I'll see you either at 12:30 for 2:15, or I'll see you tomorrow at 11 in here. But send me an attendance ping, and then have a good afternoon.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
In the ODP, it says make sure your program outputs, hello world, and then the new line character.
Mm-hmm.
And my curiosity there is when I read it the way that it's read, I did the assess and I said no, don't assess it because I was worried about it was getting wrong.
Okay.
I haven't talked about it yet. I was and I was just like, oh, so do you want me to show the exact? So when I output, the output should show hello world /n.
Oh, okay.
It just wants to be hello world and then go to a new line.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's where I'm like, how do I tell what there?
You can always ask, right? So /n is something that we'll use pretty much daily in this course to mean, print out a new line. If I wanted you to literally print a / followed by an n, I would make that pretty clear. But if there's any ambiguity or question, just go ahead and ask. So generally, when an ODP opens, it'll open at 8 in the morning, and then we'll have class at 11, so you've got a few hours to think about it. And then in class, I'll go through the ODP, and I'll explain what it should do, and maybe I'll show you an example output if it's outputting something, and you can ask questions then. And if not, you can work on it later, and if you're not getting credit for it and you're not sure why, you can try sending an email and tell me exactly what's going on. But usually it'll be pretty clear. Once we get rolling, we'll be doing the same things over and over again.
Right. Okay.
All right, cool.
I haven't used Linux that much.
Okay.
Much at all, other than in my previous class.
Okay.
CSE.
Yeah, that's the goal of this course.
I created, I created a VI on my Mac and put in Linux. And when I was messing around in the command line or in VI, as soon as I started using the arrows to move around, it started adding letters like A, B, C, and D.
Yes.
Arrow pad, and I'm just like, well, no, and then I couldn't seem to figure out how do I delete a line, and is this, so I should be looking in the text for that?
Let's see. So everybody else is free to go if you want, but I'll stay on for a few minutes and answer questions. So if you hop into a let's do this from let's do this from here.
And out of curiosity, why a Linux server and why the CTEX server when it seemed to have multiple running Linux? Is there an advantage over one over the other? Or?
I just kind of wanted more control over what was going on. So the CTEX server is run by a different department, and I found it useful to be able to do things like, I don't know, once in a while, like show what happens if you crash the machine, So I think this is pointed to somewhere on the system, but if you go to linuxengrcs.com/tildenix/shared, so one level above the shared code area, and click on EXRC, and look at the README, it will tell you how to fix the arrow keys. So basically there's a file in here called EXRC. If you copy it to .exrc in your home directory, the next time you start VI, the arrow key should work correctly. Yeah, there is.
Part?
We'll talk about VI in a little bit also, but to use VI efficiently, you really want to spend your life in what's called command mode as opposed to insert mode. So if you do a VI on a file, most people type an I to do insert, and then everything that they type becomes part of their file. And if you hit an escape, then you're in command mode. You can do things like :W and so on and so forth. You really want to spend your life in command mode rather than insert mode. And if you're in command mode, you can move around with HJKL, so H will go back and K will go up and so on. But you can also, move around a word at a time. You can move up and down. You can do things like copy and paste and jump immediately to the bottom or to the first line and so on using various keyboard commands. So when we talk about VI, we'll get into some of that, but the reason the arrow keys don't work is that if you're in insert mode, arrow keys actually send a sequence of characters like an escape, a bracket, and then a letter A through D. So for short term, yeah, you can set up your EXRC and the arrow keys will work fine. And it's not a bad thing to have happen, but the more time you can spend in command mode instead of insert, the more you'll be able to make efficient use of VI's capabilities.
So are we coding in command mode
So we're writing code in more or less whatever editor you like, but hopefully VI. And VI just has two modes in which it operates. There's a mode where you type things and they enter into your file. That's insert mode. And when you're trying to write, void main parentheses curly bracket, you want to be in insert mode to do that. But usually when you first go into VI, you're in command mode, and if you're moving around, if you're looking at your code, if you're wondering, did I forget a curly bracket or something like that, right? That's when you would be in command mode. And you can do things like move around efficiently and make changes and things like that. And there's a video posted on using VI also. I don't know if that's on the playlist yet. If not, I'll move that in there. But that might give you some ideas.
Alright, sounds good.
All right, cool. All right, I'm going to close this out and get ready for my next class.
Alright, see you there.
All right, have a good one, everyone.